I did a really good job vlogging majority of my reads from July, so fingers crossed this will be a short and snappy kind of wrap up because I have talked about pretty much everything in depth in a vlog, which I'll link all of them down below. There's only 2 books that I read this month that I have not talked about anywhere on the internet yet. So I've got 15 minutes on the timer because that is when my lunch will be ready. So we're going to see if I can get through this July wrap up in that time frame. I won't, but we'll try. Here are my stats for anyone who's interested in that information. It was a pretty okay reading month. Recollection wise, I'm not really sure what the stats say because I haven't looked at them yet. So I don't know if like my average ratings are high, but it felt like a pretty okay reading month. Oh, now my battery is gonna, okay, we're just racing against the clock. We're gonna start off with the 2 books that I read for book series bingo in the month of July. Well, one I loved, one was fine. I read The Wild Robot Escapes by Peter Brown. This is the sequel to The Wild Robot, and this is a middle grade series. This one directly follows the cliffhanger ending of book 1, so I won't give too much away, but of course, as I said, you can check out that vlog if you are interested in more thoughts. But we're continuing to follow Roz, the robot, and her son, Bright Bill, the goose. I didn't love this one as much as I loved The Wild Robot. I felt like Peter Brown was a little heavy-handed with his themes, and I felt like he was underestimating the intelligence of the children that are going to read his books. And so I didn't love that part of this. I'm hoping I will like the 3rd book more and it'll be back to the 5-star that book 1 was. My oldest has read this entire trilogy and they confirmed that this is their least favorite book as well. So I feel validated in that opinion. And then I also read The Geographer's Map to Romance by India Holton. This is the sequel to The Ornithologist's Field Guide for Love, and I think this one was 5 stars too. The first one was 5 stars and this one was 5 stars. We're following Elodie and Gabriel, who are geographers, and they are both professors at universities. They are a failed marriage of convenience. They have been married for a year and have been estranged for that year, and there is a magical disaster in Wales, and because they are both Professor Tarrant, they are both summoned to help with the disaster, and it's really lovely and funny and ridiculous, but very aware of its own ridiculousness, which is my favorite thing ever. I just love India Holton's writing style. She's not afraid to be silly, and she's still so smart in her silliness. You can tell she's really aware of romance tropes, and she's playing with them in a very fun, smart kind of way in this series. Highly recommend them. I absolutely adore them. The next thing I vlogged about was Summerween, and Summerween is a yearly readathon created and hosted by emjaereads, where we're just trying to bring the spooky vibes into the summer season. And I read a good amount of books in this week and had pretty good success, though we definitely kind of like went down in enjoyment as we went along. I did read The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling, and I didn't love this one. This is like medieval cannibalistic horror. It gets kind of fever dreamy. I loved the ending. Unfortunately, the beginning was hard for me to sink my teeth into, and I just didn't have the right amount of investment at the end for it to have the impact that I really wish it had. But this follows 3 different women who are living in this keep that has been under siege, and they are running out of food very, very quickly. And then these saints arrive and things slowly start to unravel from there. This is very creepy, very tense. I think in a different, I don't know if this would be better on a reread or if I would still struggle with it. But sadly, it was just not the 5-star I was hoping for. And then another book that I was kind of disappointed by was Overgrowth by Mira Grant. This is her latest horror book, though I would say this is very much science fiction with very little horror, in my opinion, for what it's worth. And this follows a woman named, oh, what's her name? Anastasia, who when she's 3, she wanders into the forest and stumbles upon this flower, and the flower eats her and then regurgitates out something that looks like Anastasia and walks like Anastasia and talks like Anastasia, but is not Anastasia. And this 3-year-old, not Anastasia, goes home and tells her mother that she's an alien. And she grows up telling everybody that she meets happily and willingly that she's an alien and that someday her people will come to retrieve her. So this is very much like an alien invasion story. And I started off loving it so much. I really liked Anastasia. Because she's an alien, she's very neurodivergent coded, but I just really liked her and how she took in the world. I really loved her friends. I loved her boyfriend. But then this, I don't know, I think the fact that it never turned into horror was a letdown because it's published by Tor Nightfire, which is their horror imprint, and it's published under Seanan McGuire's horror pen name, and I was just expecting more Into the Drowning Deep vibes than what I got. And it just got too info dumpy at the end when the aliens arrived, and I quickly lost interest, which was really sad because I thought this was going to be a 5-star. Like at the beginning of the book, I was so into it, and it just, the rating got lower and lower as I went along. I did read a nonfiction for Summerween. I read Whack Job by Rachel McCarthy James. This is about history of axe murder, and it was very interesting, and I definitely recommend it if you are looking for like a really niche nonfiction thing, then this is it. And then I read Temple Alley Summer by Sachiko Kashiwaba. And I read this by mistake. I thought that this was the book that inspired Spirited Away. I had the right author, but I grabbed the wrong book. So I still have a hold on that one because I do want to read it. But this is about a boy who discovers a secret about the street that his family lives on. And it takes place over the summer as he tries to solve a mystery and save a friend. This is middle grade, and it's got a story within a story element, and I thought it was fine. It definitely reminded me of Studio Ghibli, like it definitely had those vibes. So I'm even more excited to read the book that was the inspiration for Spirited Away. And then the last two books I read for Summerween are novellas. I read The Babysitter Liz by Stephen Graham Jones. This might be my second favorite Stephen Graham Jones. My first favorite being My Heart is a Chainsaw, obviously. This is about a girl who goes over to babysit, and it's a haunted house story and kind of a revenge story. I don't know. It was super creepy. I got grossed out so many times. There was such a foreboding sense of dread, but it was so creative in its creepiness, and I enjoyed it. I was captivated by it the whole time I was reading it, and I'm so glad to have another Stephen Graham Jones that I really love, because sometimes he can be real hit or miss for me, but I find when he writes young women protagonists that those are the books of his that I like the most, so this was a big hit for me. And then one of my favorite books of this month, I don't remember what I gave it during Summerween, but I think I'm bumping it up to a 5 because I keep thinking about it. And it's Spread Me by Sarah Gailey. This is not out yet. It comes out in September, so soon. And it is a very creepy novella set in a desert. And it's this team of scientists who are living in like this thing in the desert. And something gets in. And I'm not going to say anything else because it's short, but I compulsively consumed this. I could not put it down. I had to know what was going to happen. It's very queer. It's very, I don't know, it's oddly erotic in a way I was not prepared for, but it's just very good. It's very good. When Sarah Gailey hits, man, do they hit. All right, and then I did like a slow summer reading vlog where I only read 2 things in that vlog, but I just needed like a recovery week after the breakneck pace of Summerween. I read another nonfiction. This is Lost and Found by Catherine Schultz. I think this would qualify as memoir, but this is Catherine Schultz talking about the 18-month period of her life where her dad was dying and she was falling in love at the same time. And it's about the scope of all the feelings that we can feel as humans, even if those feelings feel contradictory in the moment. And we are capable of feeling so many things, basically. I really loved this. It made me cry. There was a middle section. Unfortunately, her falling in love section, I didn't love as much as when she was talking about grief and her parents. I thought all of that was really lovely. I did find the way she talked about her wife to be the most romantic writing I have ever read in my life, and all romance authors, specifically sapphic romance authors, need to take note of how you talk about the person that you're in love with, because that was perfection. It was so beautiful. And then for a book club, I read Tusk Love by Thea Guanzon, and I had to start this over. I started it, I got 40 pages, I was not having a good time, and I was devastated because I wanted to love this so much. And so I restarted it, and I had a great time. This is really fun. This is a book within a book. No, a book within a game. Tusk Love is a novel that exists in the Critical Role universe, and this is the novelization of that fictional novel in the game. That is my lunch. So it's a little romantasy. It's a standalone, and it's about this woman named Guinevere who is supposed to be journeying to meet her parents, where she is going to be betrothed to this man she's never met, and her caravan is set upon by thieves, and she meets Oscar, who is a half-orc who kind of rescues her. She's kind of rescuing herself, but you know, he helped. And they go on a road trip to get back to where she's supposed to meet her parents, and they fall in love on the way, and it was wonderful, and it was so much fun, and definitely recommend if you're just looking for a little romantasy standalone that's pretty light and fluffy, like nothing super dire. I'd almost call it cozy, because while the stakes are high for them, you know everything's going to be okay, which is kind of like my favorite. That's why I love romance so much, because I can read about stressful stuff and not really worry about anybody. And then another vlog I did was reading new releases. So I read Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. This is her book that comes out in August, I believe. Actually, I think it comes out pretty soon. And this is her Snow White retelling, and I really liked this for the most part. I did feel like it was a little slow in the beginning. There was a lot of talking. It was a little repetitive. Our main character, Anya, is I guess she's like an academic type person. She's been studying poisons and antidotes for a really long time. That's something she just got interested in as a child, and it's carried her through, followed her into adulthood, and she is summoned to the castle because the queen's daughter Snow is really ill and nobody can figure out what's wrong with her. So yeah, like I said, the beginning was a little slow. There was a lot of repetition. There was a lot of talking and saying the same thing because nobody knows what is wrong with Snow, and so there's a lot of repetition as Anya tries to find out what's going on. But the second half of the book, we got into horror and a little bit of a portal fantasy, and I love when T. Kingfisher plays in that sandbox, so I absolutely loved the last half of the book. I think I ended up giving it about a 4, maybe a 3.75, because even though I absolutely loved the ending, I couldn't overlook how bored I was in the beginning, like to the point where I thought about DNFing it, but I've never DNF'd a T. Kingfisher book before, and I didn't want to start now. And then I also read The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. I feel like such a bummer. I didn't really love this one either. I gave The Spell Shop 5 stars, and The Spell Shop has my favorite heroine archetype, where it's somebody who is a little insecure, socially awkward, and has some anxiety, and in response has put up a wall and is a little withdrawn, kind of cranky, and is tough for other people to get to know. And I absolutely love that, and that is our main character in The Spell Shop. The Enchanted Greenhouse, we went the other way, and our main character, whose name I could not even remember while I was reading the book, and so don't even ask me what her name is now, because I don't know. She had been charged with a crime at the beginning of the book and turned into a statue for 6 years. And so she wakes up on this island. She's been de-statuified, and there are all these greenhouses. And this main character, while being anxious, insecure, and socially awkward, she manages it by being really chatty, very outgoing, and that made me that is not as enjoyable for me to read. I think because that probably more closely mirrors how I react in stressful situations, but it wasn't my favorite. I did really like the greenhouses in this, and I like that Sarah Beth Durst leaned more into the sentient plant situation, which, if you've read The Spell Shop, is like the best part of that book. It's so good. I gotta pause, and I'm gonna go get my lunch out of the oven. Just one second, please. Okay, as I was saying, or wasn't saying, because I don't think I've even given you a plot for this book yet. Our main character wakes up on this island. She's been destatued, and there are all these magical greenhouses that are failing. And so the plants inside the greenhouses are dying as the structures fail. And the gardener from the greenhouses has brought her back, not to life because she wasn't dead, but like has brought her back because he believes, because of her past experience, that she can help to save the greenhouses. And that is our plot for this one. So if you did not love The Spell Shop, I would recommend picking this up because I think the main character, Keela, in The Spell Shop was off-putting for a lot of people. And so if that is not your vibe for main character, I think this one would work for you a lot better. Unfortunately, it was the opposite experience for me. And then the last vlog I did in July was reading 200 pages a day to finish up my TBR, and boy howdy, did I do it. I read Poverty by America by Matthew Desmond. This is another nonfiction. 3 nonfictions this month. I'm so proud of myself. But this is about the poverty in America and why it exists, how it exists, and what politicians could do to eradicate poverty if they chose to actually enact practices, rules, governing that helped people. I think everybody should read this. If you live in the United States, I think everybody should read this because it is shameful that there are this many people living in these conditions in one of the richest countries in the world. And then at my oldest request, I read Hio the Hellmaker by Mina Ikimoto Ghosh. This is an illustrated YA novel. It is loosely inspired by Japanese culture, and it's about Hio, whose family are hellmakers, which means they can communicate with the dead, and there is a murder, and Hio goes and investigates to try to find out what happened. This was very cool, very creepy, surprisingly funny. The artwork is stunning, but also super creepy. I really enjoyed this. I don't remember what rating I gave it, but it was definitely a 4, maybe a 4.5. I was very impressed, and this is a debut, so I can't wait to see what else she writes. And I think this is definitely very underrated. And then kind of along the same lines, kind of a fantasy murder mystery, is The Witness for the Dead by Catherine Addison. I did not love this as much. This is a spinoff from The Goblin Emperor. My battery is about to die, so I'll tell you more about this after I charge it. Okay, we're back. I have been fed and caffeinated. My battery has been charged so we can finish up what was supposed to be a really short filming session. Anyways, Witness of the Dead. We are following a minor character from the Goblin Emperor who is a witness for the dead, and it's similar as Hio. Thara, I think is his name, can not communicate with the dead, but he can hear what the dead have to say. So he goes to a lot of will readings to ensure that the will that is being read is what the deceased intended to leave to everybody. And in this one, a opera singer is found murdered, and Thara is trying to solve it. I had a couple issues with this book. First of all, there's no chapters, like at all. And I need a chapter break. Page breaks don't cut it. I need a chapter break. I also really struggled at the beginning of this because this is a full world that Catherine Addison has built, and there were so many fantasy words at the beginning. I mean, all throughout, but at the beginning there are so many fantasy words that I really struggled to understand what was happening because there were so many names. The way people are addressed, like honorifics, are different, and so I didn't understand that for a while, and so I thought a bunch of people had the same name because it just took me a while to figure out, oh no, that's like the honorific, the fantasy version of Mr. or Ms. And that took me a while. And then even though this is in first person, I never felt like we got to know Thara very well. He felt pretty closed off and one-dimensional, and that made it hard to follow somebody. It made it hard to care and be invested in this character because I felt like I never really got to know him very well. And I don't remember having that issue with the Goblin Emperor. Like, I remember really liking it and really liking Maya, the main character. So I don't know why this one felt not as good, but I didn't love it. And now I'm kind of in a quandary because I have the whole trilogy, this whole spin-off trilogy. I have all the books, and I gave this, I think, a 3. So I'm not quite sure what to do about that. I did read my Octavia E. Butler for the month. I read A Parable of the Talents so I could finish up the, I don't know what this, the Earthseed duology, is that what it's called? And I think this is my favorite Butler book that I've read so far. I'm not going to give you a whole bunch of details because it does pick up pretty quickly after Parable of the Sower ends. We get a little bit of a time jump, but not much. And I loved this. She introduced a new perspective, so we get more than just Lauren's journal entries, and I really liked that. This one is incredibly sad, however. Like, this is not an easy duology to read. There are a lot of really horrible, violent, and sad things that happen to everybody in these books. This is not a gentle version of the United States that Butler's characters are living in. So in that one, it's hard to read, but I thought this one was especially devastating, but I also felt like Butler is at the height of her powers in this book. Her storytelling is so powerful and evocative, and I think if you've read Sower and you've never continued on, I highly recommend that you continue on because I think Sower is good, but this is truly a great book. And then another favorite for this month that I wasn't expecting to read is Cinder House by Freya Marsk. This is another arc. This one doesn't come out till October. And this is a fairy tale retelling, which if you've been around here for a while, you know I kind of have an iffy relationship with. And not only is it a fairy tale retelling, but it is a Cinderella retelling, which is my least favorite fairy tale to read a retelling of. But it's also Freya Marsk, and I love this so much. I gave this 5 stars. In this version of Cinderella, Ella dies right at the beginning of the book, and her ghost proceeds to haunt the house that she grew up in, and she becomes visible to her stepmother and to her stepsisters at some point, and they are able to manipulate her by using the house as not collateral, but if they hurt the house, it hurts Ella, and so that's how they force her to take care of the house for them. This does follow the very traditional Cinderella retelling with the 3 balls and, you know, those kind of plot points, but it was done in such a lovely way. This book is also unexpectedly queer. I mean, not unexpectedly, it's Freya Marsk, but I was not anticipating how this book would be queer, and I found it utterly delightful. I loved Ella. This is by far my favorite Cinderella Ella that I've ever read. Usually I find the Cinderellas annoying. And I didn't find her annoying. I found her utterly delightful. I loved her relationship with the prince. It was just, it was so good. It was so good. I cannot wait for this to come out in October so more people can read it and I can have people to talk to about how delightful it is. I am side-eyeing Tor a little bit that this novella is going to be $24.99 in hardcover. What are we doing? That's all I'm going to say about that. And now that just leaves us, I believe, yes, with the 2 that I haven't talked to anyone about. And they are both YA graphic novels, funnily enough. I finally read The Deep Dark. This is by Molly Knox Ostertag, and Molly Knox Ostertag is beloved in my house. My kids have all read this. I was just slow to get to it, and I don't even know how to explain this. Mags is a senior in high school and has a secret, a family secret, and that family secret really impacts how Mags interacts with the world and what she allows herself to have. This one was pretty emotional, definitely a little bit on the darker side, you know, as the title would suggest. This isn't my favorite of Ostertag's works, but I definitely see the value in having this story out in the world. I found the art and the way that color was used absolutely stunning, though, even if this particular storyline wasn't my favorite. And I'm really glad that I read it. And then I also read The Worst Ronin. This is by Maggie Takuta Hall, who I absolutely adore. And then the art is by Faith Schaefer. And this is a fantasy graphic novel. And our main character, do I remember anybody's name? Chihiro wants to be a samurai, but girls aren't really allowed to become samurai. There's only really one. And she is not a very good samurai. The worst Ronin applies to, what is her name? Tetsuo? And Chihiro hires Tetsuo to help her complete a mission. Yeah? I had a good time reading this. Sadly, it is fairly forgettable. I don't remember a ton of details, even though I maybe only read it 2 weeks ago. But I did find it funny. I liked the art. And this is a little bit more on the mature side of way, just in terms of like language and stuff. Granted, my 13-year-olds read it, so take that with a grain of salt. And because I don't really police what my 13-year-olds read. But if you have a kiddo who falls into this age category, but you're a little more sensitive about them reading certain language, like maybe take that into account. But the boat has long since sailed on swearing in my house. So it's just is what it is at this point. So yeah, I'm glad this exists in the world. I don't think I was quite the target audience for this, but I am glad it exists. And my kids, who are the target age-ish, really enjoyed it. So yeah, that is it feels like a kind of a chaotic July wrap-up, but we got through it, and I have to go pick up my kids from camp. So I guess it is what it is, and we'll try to be less chaotic next month. Fingers crossed. And I would love to hear what your favorite book of the month was. If you read something you think I would really love, I would absolutely want to hear about it. Please give me all your book recs. If you want to leave an emoji to let me know that you were here, let's leave a little ghost emoji, since we had Summerween in July. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Bye!